When it comes to titans of the horror genre, you don't get much more prolific than Doug Bradley. From playing one of cinema's most iconic villains, to his weird and wonderful voice work. In the latest installment of Arrow in the Head's Horror Hall of Fame, we take a deep dive into the career of a man whose image is seared into the psyches of horror fans the world over. Growing up a proud Liverpudlian, Bradley was one of a handful of notable students who attended Quarrybank High School, which famously saw a young John Lennon grace its hallowed halls. But it was the like-minded Clive Barker who would capture Bradley's attention, the two striking up a lifelong friendship that would outlast even the Fab Four.
Coming to Hellraiser, I had worked in the theatre with Clive Barker for a decade before Hellraiser happened, and we had always done a lot of masking work. We'd done a lot of Commedia dell'arte inspired work, mime, and I've always as well been interested in masking.
Both Barker and Bradley's interest in the performing arts would lead them to the University of Liverpool, where they would form progressive theatrical group The Dog Company. It was here that they would meet other like-minded writers, performers and artists, including Peter Atkins, who would become a key figure in the creative output of the two men going forward. After appearing in a few experimental shorts for Barker, Bradley would experience an extended drought when it came to acting gigs, until his old buddy came calling in the mid-80s, tapping his talents for a film that would change the course of both men's lives. At the beginning of production on 1987's Hellraiser, it would have been impossible to predict that the role of the lead Cenobite in Barker's adaptation of his 1986 novella would go on to join the horror movie pantheon alongside names like Freddy, Michael and Jason. Bringing the character to life wasn't without its challenges, with Bradley often struggling to hit his marks on set due to both the dark contact lenses and long skirt he was required to wear as part of his costume. Not only did Bradley's character not have a name in the initial film, but he wasn't intended to continue on as the lead antagonist beyond the second installment in the series. All of that changed, however, when fans began to rally around their favourite new horror creation, who affectionately became known as Pinhead.
I am the way. Taste our pleasures.
You get into very strange places.
Oh, yes.
And you can't settle. I become a nomad. I want to be on my own, but after I've been on my own for 10 minutes, I can't cope with being on my own with this stuff. And you go out and seek other people to chat to, and after 10 minutes of that, you feel uncomfortable with that, and you go off and wander around.
Not content with a higher billing on the follow-up installments Hellbound and Hell on Earth, Bradley would also play a dual role as Captain Elliot Spencer and receive an additional behind-the-scenes credit under a made-up moniker for his ability to apply his own makeup during filming. Clive Barker wouldn't return to the franchise following the second entry, while old college buddy Peter Atkins would only serve out his tenure as screenwriter for one more entry, with the series suffering diminishing returns and eventually going straight to DVD.
Pinhead is an extraordinary combination of contradictions, and there wasn't any character really before him who looked like that. This idea of having a guy with nails banged into his head. Then I have this extraordinary costume, the upper half of which is very butch, and it's leather, and it's muscular, and it suggests exposed muscles, and you have this thing of the flesh interweaving with the costume. And then just for fun, I wear a skirt.
By the mid-noughties, Bradley had become displeased with the pace at which the studio was cranking out subsequent installments, saying of the 9th film in the franchise, "This does not seem to me to represent a serious attempt to revive the Hellraiser franchise." The character of Pinhead would be swiftly recast, with Stefan Smith-Collins playing him in Hellraiser Revelations, and Paul T. Taylor taking up the mantle for Hellraiser Judgment. To this day, Bradley remains one of only 6 actors to play the same horror character at least 6 consecutive times.
As the movie went on, I felt increasingly that really Pinhead is not the monster. The monsters are Julia and Frank.
Meanwhile, the character of Pinhead has weaved his way into mainstream pop culture in a way few would have imagined possible for a demonic creation with sadomasochistic tendencies. The list of appearances over the years includes The Simpsons, Family Guy, and South Park, while the Hellraiser 3 soundtrack would help Pinhead garner a whole new legion of fans, with rockers Motorhead tapping the talents of Bradley for the album's lead single, directed by Clive Barker. Outside the role that made his name, Bradley's career would branch out in unexpected ways during the 90s and noughties. The Barker-directed film Nightbreed would see him swap the role of Cenobite for Acolyte in a project that would be marred by studio interference. Delays, reshoots and recuts would see the 2.5-hour film cut down by almost an hour for its initial release.
Any character in a Clive Barker movie, you'll be lucky if you get away without some supernatural element attached to it. And that is true in Nightbreed far more than in Hellraiser. There are more, dare I say, regular human beings in Hellraiser. In Nightbreed, almost nobody is untouched by the weird and the strange.
Before being revisited decades later for the director's cut and the even longer Cabal cut, which saw all the original scenes reinstated.
The life you lived will be a dream.
I know. Bradley's cult status would see him picked up for a wide array of music videos and commercials, as well as working with heavy metal band Cradle of Filth on a number of studio albums. He would dip his toe into other franchises, in the likes of Pumpkinhead, Ashes to Ashes, and the 5th entry in the Wrong Turn series. Meanwhile, his impressive list of voice work continued to grow, as he was welcomed into the Star Wars universe to play the Sith Emperor in Star Wars The Old Republic. And he would even get the chance to direct himself in the 2008 short film Spine Chiller's The Outsider, adapted from a short story by H.P. Lovecraft.
By the time I had managed to tell him as rationally as I could what I thought I was hearing, my ears gave me the last fading impression of the scurrying, which had retreated still downward, far underneath this deepest of subcellars.
He would re-team with Barker one final time for Book of Blood, which was an adaptation of the author's literary works from the 80s. However, Barker would serve as producer only, having hung up the director's chair after 1995's Lords of Illusion.
At heart, I'm a writer and a painter. I'm a writer and a painter who got lucky and got to make some movies.
And during an otherwise dark and depressing 2020, his soothing tones were a welcome distraction on his very own YouTube channel, where poems and books were read aloud to fans with gusto.
In midnights of November, when Dead Man's Fair is nigh, and danger in the valley and anger in the sky, around the huddling homesteads, the leafless timber roars. The dead call the dying.
Many a night of storm. It's just such an image.
As for the series that made his name, Barker was reported to have written his own script for a Hellraiser remake back in 2013, with the intention for Bradley to star. However, the film would never progress beyond the script stage. But with the character being resurrected in a new remake, and with Pinhead having officially been inducted into the Movie Monster Hall of Fame, it's clear that Bradley's work has left a permanent mark, not only on an entire generation of filmgoers, but also on the horror genre that was forever changed by his unique presence.
They're handmade, Joey. A shadow of my former troops, over-eager. But let them play. Our game will come later. Down the dark decades of your pain.
So eager to play, so reluctant to admit it. Perhaps you're teasing us. Are you teasing us?
I've come for my father!
Thou shalt not bow down before any graven image.
Hey, thanks for watching our show. Please subscribe to our JoBlo Horror Videos channel. Tell your friends who like this sort of content. And turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. Listen, we're an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.